So far, 3 of the Supreme Court judges have voted against Lula's petition, and 1 has voted in his favor. These are live pictures of the court where Judge Rosa Weber is now giving her ruling. So for more on the court ruling on Lula, we're being joined from Brazil by the independent journalist Mike Fox. So Mike, thank you for joining us live. What's the latest from the Supreme Court?
Thanks for having me. I believe that Rosa Weber has just cast her vote, so it looks like we're at 4-1 against Lula. It's not a good sign for Lula and his supporters because Rosa Weber, a lot of people saw her as kind of the person that was going to decide the vote itself. Now, it's still not, the game's not over, but obviously a lot of people see this going in a direction that's not good for Lula or his supporters.
So if the court denies Lula's request for habeas corpus, would he go to prison immediately? What are the next steps?
It would not be immediate, but I believe he has a couple of days, maybe 48 hours or something like that. They would actually have to write, a prison, request to pick him up. I think if that's what happens, then we can be seeing him jailed within the week, though.
So we're still waiting for a decision. It still could kind of go any way. If it upholds the habeas corpus, does that mean that Lula can definitely run in October's election?
Good question. Very good question. If it upholds the habeas corpus, then Lula is free to campaign, he's free to register, he's free to get the vote out. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that he can be the candidate. It doesn't necessarily mean that he'll, if he wins, he'll be the next president. Why is that? Because under Brazilian law, people convicted of corruption cannot run and cannot hold office. But Lula can still register, he can still campaign. If the Supreme Electoral Court it would have to go before the Supreme Electoral Court. They would be the ones to finally decide whether his candidacy is legitimate. The PT, the Workers' Party, would have 20 days out from the election to decide if who they want to transfer his candidacy to. So they'd have 20 days out to transfer that to somebody else, and that would be the new candidate for the PT's electoral candidate. Now, of course, that is a much better scenario than Lula going to jail now. Which is a situation that nobody on the Workers' Party, on kind of the leftist movements wants because of what Lula stands for and the amount of approval rating that he has. Right now it's 41% in the country, and he's way ahead of the polls in front of everybody else. If the election was held right now, Lula would be the victor.
Okay, so we are looking at live footage from the court. We're running that right beside you, Mike. But I need to ask you, we've been reporting that at least 2 Brazilian army generals have sort of implied that there will be some sort of military intervention if Lula remains free. How significant is that?
Well, it's extremely concerning, understanding the history of Brazil, right? The 2-decade-long military dictatorship, 1964 to 1985, and the fact that the military and military officials feel that they can lean into this is extremely concerning. Whether or not they would actually carry it through is another thing. I was speaking with people, Lula supporters here in front of the local federal justice courts just this afternoon, and they were saying they didn't think there was any weight behind it, but still the fact that they were leaning into this decision is extremely concerning, and it has people across Brazil really, really intense. So it is something that we need to keep a lookout for. One of the generals that spoke was a general in the reserves, and the other one was actually the head of the armed forces. Now, the head of the armed forces, he sent tweets. He did not say we're going to call out a coup, but he definitely, or a military intervention, but he definitely said that he was in favor of Lula being sent to jail and of no more impunity.
Well, that's really interesting. Mike, I feel like we might have to talk to you again tomorrow to dissect the actual results because we don't have them as yet. We've been talking to Mike Fox. He is an independent journalist in Brazil.